The meat off.
The Cleveland Cavaliers might be the best team in the league and are on the way to breaking a 20-year-long precedent if they win the NBA title, which they have a good chance at doing. Behind their core four of Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, Darius Garland, and Jarrett Allen, and are on pace to win 68 games with a historically good offense. I won't waste any time though, let me explain why. Over the last 2 decades, there have been just 2 examples of times that the championship winning team didn't have a top 5 player. The 2014 Spurs, who still had an elite but aging supporting cast, and Greg Popovich at the helm, and Kawhi Leonard was a young superstar, while last year's Celtics still had a top 10 guy in Jayson Tatum, and were the greatest deep-range shooting team of all time. That's just how hard it is to win without a top 5 game-breaking guy, but somehow the Cavs can do it this year, and that is because of their depth, player-wise, just having a bunch of guys that work well with each other, but also having 3 top 20 players, starting off with the number 1 in Spida. Donovan Mitchell had started this season off slowly, which is insanely impressive considering Cleveland started with 18 consecutive wins, but he has started to heat up as of late. Of course, Mitchell is still an all-star, his 6th consecutive appearance. He has consistently been one of the best scorers and 2 guards in the league, averaging 20 plus across all 8 of his seasons in the NBA, even with the Utah Jazz, and is quickly marking himself as one of the best Cavaliers in franchise history. Now let's get the negative out of the way at the start. He has struggled near the rim after shooting over 70% within 3 feet over the last 3 seasons, an elite rate that defines Spida as one of the best finishers in the league. He's now shooting a career low 60.3%. He has taken a substantial step back in how much he drives and struggles to even hit those shots despite the team spacing and off-ball movement, which will be talked about more, having improved. So it doesn't make much sense why he's taking this step back, but he has been better as of late, of course. And the offensive philosophy of giving everyone touches, plus Mobley's offensive jump, commanding more touches, plus the heavy pick and roll offense, slightly favoring the ball being in Garland's hands, are causing him to have his lowest usage rate as a Cav, and since his rookie season, while the still impressive 24 points a night are also the lowest since 2019. But let's not be all negative. Mitchell's shot selection is really good and he has been pretty smart with the ball, not wasting possessions and having some nice passing to teammates. He really is able to just take over a game if he needs to too, which he has struggled with in Cleveland at least. He's still able to thrive in the pick and roll, but where Mitchell has succeeded most is with Evan Mobley. Last season, Mitchell was paired with Allen due to injuries from Garland and Mobley around the same time, and while they were good together, even going on a 17-1 streak in January to February, the combo of Mitchell and Mobley is just unstoppable. When those two are on the court together, they are a plus 401, the 3rd highest plus minus, and outscoring opponents by an average of 14.5 per 48 minutes. Their defense is unstoppable, with Mitchell being very capable defensively, and him being able to still succeed even when deferring to teammates helps the team's offense as a whole. Mitchell has also had his best 3-point shooting season of his career, despite shooting over 9 threes a game. With a lot of those attempts being difficult shots, he's shooting at a near 40% rate, his career high. Spida has legitimate range and can go on heaters while being able to knock down in any way, in transition, off the catch, off pull-ups, off the pick and roll, you name it. There are times where Mitchell will shoot and you just don't think he will ever miss. While Mitchell may not be a clear top 10 guy, which could hold Cleveland back in the playoffs, he has been amazing as of late, averaging over 26 since mid-January, and is a proven playoff star with notable performances in the bubble, and has just consistently elevated his game when it matters, including last season where Cleveland took down the Magic in 7 before being defeated by the eventual champion Celtics, with Mitchell nearly averaging 30, but he isn't the only all-star guard on the Cavs. The Darius Garland narratives last season were nasty. Garland missed time with a broken jaw and caused him to lose 20 pounds. Because of these setbacks, he would never play up to expectations and had a very disappointing season. But instead of acknowledging why he played so bad with actual context, many critics started talking about how bad of a player Garland was, and that he was washed and not as good as we once thought. Well, less than a year later, and it is clear they couldn't have been more wrong, as DG is having by far the best season of his career. While Brunson or Trey will likely win Clutch Player of the Year, Garland deserves to at least be in the race. He consistently hits big shots, leading Cleveland to a league-leading 17-6 record in the clutch, and has multiple daggers made this year. But that shot making on multiple levels is a part of what has really made Garland this good, as he really is a 3-level scorer. While he isn't some Kyrie or Curry level finisher, as his touch near the rim isn't insanely good, he's still a big threat, especially in transition due to his playmaking. Garland is also a beast in the mid-range, especially off the pick and roll. He can dominate with his floater, and he has taken a huge leap in how good of a two-point shooter he is, with a career-high 54.9% two-point shooting, up from the 50% mark that he had been hovering around for the last few seasons. Garland also just has a bag. He's able to create twos and even threes, which I'll talk about, for himself at an insanely impressive rate. But by far the best quality of Garland's scoring is his deep range shooting, where he has a genuine case to be a top 5 3-point shooter, as aside from Curry, there may not even be another one better, at least this year. He can knock down shots in any situation, and his versatility makes him so talented in that department. He's elite off the catch. Though not much of a movement shooter, his off-ball location, and especially the improvement in that area this season under Kenny Atkinson, has made him even scarier. He doesn't stop moving, and doesn't miss shots when open, as he's shooting 73 for 161, a 45.3% rate off catch and shoot threes, a 10% improvement from last season. He can also still pull up and knock down shots off the dribble, shooting over 40% off pull-up attempts, which on over 200 attempts at this point in the season makes him one of the best pull-up shooters in the association. Some of that success comes from the pick and roll, where if the defender doesn't fight through the screen, Garland uses the tiniest bit of space to let it fly. DG and Spida also have adjustable shooting, where they can release shots from awkward angles and still change their release to higher or lower, and it doesn't really affect their shots. It's still money. But his playmaking is also extremely dangerous. You all know this. He's a really good decision maker, limiting his turnovers, and as the offensive engine, creates so much for others. He can throw dives in just a sliver of space, especially inside where he commands a defender, and in transition, you might as well just give Cleveland points if the ball is in his hands. Garland can thrive as the ball handler in such a pick and roll heavy offense, but someone else on Cleveland may have taken an even bigger jump this season. He is the DPOY. Evan Mobley has been a complete beast this season, and with unfortunate health issue with Victor Wembanyama that will take him out for the remainder of the season, it opened up the DPOY conversation to 2 to 3 players. Mobley, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Dyson Daniels making a tiny bit of noise, but Mobley deserves it. His defensive versatility is nuts, as he commonly defends the worst floor spacer on the opposing team and works as a roamer, being paint happy and deferring anyone that gets close to the rim, because Mobley will send that shot into the bleachers. That isn't to say he can't lock someone up though, as that long wingspan and reach can fluster defenders, and while as a skinnier defender, he can get bullied by bigger dudes, he can hold his own a lot of the time, and can genuinely defend 3 through 5 while still being able to work on smaller guards because of his length. Even in non-Jarrett Allen minutes, the Cavs can still thrive defensively because Mobley is just everywhere and willing to go crazy defensively in the paint, and he's the biggest reason of the Cavs' defensive success, where they rank 7th in defensive rating despite their starting backcourt not being the best defenders. The rim protection on this team is nuts, and Mobley leads the way, but he's still very good on offense. Under new coach Atkinson, one of his bigger changes was getting Mobley the ball in his hands more, and it has worked out great, really unlocking him. While he now has the ability to knock down deep range shots off the dribble, he's also scary as a driver. He has become smarter, attacking open lanes, and he's a gifted athlete. With that reach, he can create some of the best dunks you will see this season. Mobley near the rim in any way is scary, but also especially in transition, as with Mobley getting the ball more, that means he can have a full head of steam driving towards the rim. Despite being nearly 7 foot, it isn't like he can dribble either. He has a really good handle, one that really shouldn't be possible for someone of his size. A big change in his game this season has been his 3-point shooting, as throughout his first 3 years, he took shots at a very low rate, just 253 total attempts, but he already has 150 so far this year, and is shooting at a near 37% rate. This opens up his game more, especially as a threat off the catch and shoot, and though he still doesn't command much gravity, defenders at least have to respect the shot. Mobley is also an increased playmaker, being able to make passes inside and outside to the 3-point line. Nothing special, but very capable as a big to make the passes that he has to do. His jump has been a huge part of the Cavs' success, but they do still have another big. Jarrett Allen is still one of the better defensive bigs in the NBA. While Evan Mobley is the lead and best defender on the Cavs, the double big pairing actually works very well, but let's talk about his offense first. Garland can thrive off double screens, where he can just pull up from deep if the defenders don't step up. And while the Cavs run a lot of players as screeners, Allen works very well in that department. He's often paired alongside Garland in his minutes. As such a pick and roll heavy team, he works very well in the role. He's a smart and dominant finisher, someone that works very well as a lob threat paired next to good playmakers, but can also just possess the ball and finish, especially if he's able to get good positioning inside. Allen is also a smart passer inside. Though he isn't really creating plays for he's a connective guy. But defensively, Allen is still very good. We saw the stretch last year that was previously mentioned, where even though Garland and Mobley were out, the Cavs went on a 17-1 run with some elite defense in that stretch. Of course, Allen isn't some insanely versatile defender, but he's still a threatening rim protector at 7 foot with some good verticality. He still pairs with Mobley in double bigs lineups that still work very well. The Cavs also have 2 6-man of the year contenders. Hunter was acquired in a trade from Atlanta, where he's having a career year, while the UVA alum has always showed the flashes to become a great player, but has struggled to remain healthy throughout his career, playing 60 games just once since his rookie season. And while Hunter was great with the Hawks, he's somehow been better in Cleveland. He's shooting an absurd 57% from deep with the Cavs and is a multi-level scorer that can create for himself, but can also knock down shots off the catch and work as a connective passer if needed. He's also a very capable defender and is slotted right into this Cavs team next to his former teammate in college, Ty Jerome. Not only should Jerome be a bigger contender for 6-man of the year, but should also be in most improved player conversations. He's bounced around the league since 2019, playing spot minutes on teams like Phoenix, OKC, and Golden State, but is finally getting consistent touches on a contender this year and has showed how good he is. Jerome is an insane shot maker, and he genuinely should not be making the shots he attempts because they are difficult shots. He's a tough finisher and a guy that succeeds in the mid-range, but is also shooting nearly 45% from deep. Jerome can also create for others and is a very good defender despite standing at just 6'5". He's an all-around gem and could be the type of glue guy that every championship team needs. But what is the main driving force behind their offense? Well, 2 things, but one is their 3-point shooting. The depth that the Cavs have with people hitting their deep range shots is insane. Everyone is converting their threes. Among the 11 players that have played at least 500 minutes for Cleveland so far, their main rotation throughout the year, only one player, who's Jarrett Allen, isn't at least a respected shooter and shooting at worse than a 34% rate. The only 2 other players who aren't shooting at least a relatively good percentage are Dean Wade and Sam Merrill, both closer to the end of the rotation and really just having off shooting seasons. They've proven they can make trades last year, as both were at least close to 40-ish%. As a team, they are deep shooting wise, and having bigs like Mobley and even off the bench in Dean Wade helps the spacing on this team so much. Across the league, the Cavs have made the 2nd most threes, trailing just Boston, who has shot deep range attempts at a historically high rate for now multiple years. But what is somehow more impressive is just how much they are making them, shooting 39.4% as a team, a full percentage point higher than the 2nd place Bucks. That is literally one of the highest percentages in NBA history and the 2nd highest of the 2020s. In the 2nd 3-point boom, the 7 seconds or less Suns that revolutionized the game was a decade and a half early. Well, the Cavs shoot better than them. The 2017 Warriors with KD, Steph, and Clay, the Cavs shoot better than them. And they are shooting at this historic rate despite making the 5th most average threes in league history. To be shooting this percentage on so many shots should not be possible, but the amount of open threes they generate is how it happens. Over 40% of their total attempts are 3-pointers, with 4+ feet of separation, and they shoot well over 40% on those shots. Well, how do they get such good shots? A lot of recent improvements across the entire league have been on positioning, a part of the game where teams like the Grizzlies thrive off of. But why stay in an area where one defender can cover 2 stationary shooters off ball and depend on the other guy to make an easy rotation to the other shooter, barring a pass attempt from the off-ball guy? It's a very easy way to play defenses. Forcing defenses to play more one-on-one ball and creating easier threes, and the Cavs also succeed very well in being active off ball, is how they are so good, as Atkinson has pounded that into this team. This team's playmaking has also led to be such a good shooting team. Garland is the engine, creating for others, but everyone on this team can pass. Even Mobley or some of the reserves can create for others and can create open shots, but their reserves are also great. Isaac Okoro has been rough since returning from injury, but before he was shooting at an absurd rate, and is still a nice perimeter defender, while filling into the starting lineup at times. Sam Merrill, Max Strus, Craig Porter Jr., and Dean Wade can all play very valuable minutes for Cleveland and have a high impact without really requiring the ball in their hands, something that helps contending teams like the Cavs a lot. Overall, the Cavs are one of the best offenses this league has ever seen. I'm not exaggerating. Cleveland scores 122.9 points a game, the 10th most in NBA history, and has a league-dominating 122.2 offensive rating, the second highest in league history, only behind last year's Celtics. This is genuinely one of the craziest offenses ever. That combination of depth, playmaking, and shot making, all time, culminating in an all-time great offense. Now you may be arguing, well, the NBA has had a massive scoring boost over the last decade, with their three-point shooting being more prevalent. This isn't actually indicative of how good the Cavs offense really is compared to historical standards. Well, somehow that just isn't true. Relative offensive rating compares a team's offensive rating to the average of that season across all teams, basically making it easier to compare teams throughout seasons and even different eras. And those 2009 or even 2016 Cavs teams that you may think were much better than this year's, well, at least offensively in the regular season, just isn't true or even close, as their 4.5 and 4.1 offensive rating, at least relative, are minuscule compared to this year's plus 8.9. But somehow, there has only been one other team in NBA history that is better. The 2004 Mavs, who were one of the earliest teams to ever use a big S spacing in Dirk Nowitzki. They became just the fourth team to be higher than plus 8, with the 7-second or less 2005 Suns and the 3-point revolutionizing 73-win Warriors at plus 8.4 and plus 8.1. All of those teams changed the game. The Cavs are just really good at what they do, making threes and using ball screens. But what about the other side of the ball? Of course, they are still great. Cleveland ranks 7th in defensive rating and allows the 10th least amount of points. While they aren't some world breaker defensively, they are more than good enough, and their shot quality defensively is elite, ranking top 5, which seems to be a requirement for teams to win a championship, as shot quality data goes back to 2020, and all 5 champions have ranked in the top 5. Teams shoot an average rate from deep against the Cavs, but they limit teams' attempts, trying to force teams inside to then go against their two-headed monster inside the paint. Mobley and Allen are 2 of the best rim protectors in the entire league, and Mobley has some of the best defensive deterrents in the league. Teams are scared to drive inside against Cleveland because of them, and having one of those 2 guys on the court at all times is just nuts. And they still have very capable defenders off the bench. Not only can they play both sides very well, but this team heats up during the clutch. The 17-6 record is by far the best in the league, and their shooting splits of 55.6, 48.9, 74.7 are incredibly scary. They don't falter when the moment gets too bright, and in fact, they get better. If you are in a close game with Cleveland down the stretch, there's a very good chance that you can just call that game over. Even against Boston in a recent game, the Cavs trailed 11-0 and even 25-3 to start the game, and even after a slight comeback, trailed by 17 in the second half, but continually battled back to end up winning 123-116 in TD Garden, holding Boston to 42 points in the second half off a Spida 41-pointer to beat a Jayson Tatum masterclass to win their 9 straight at the time. They are resilient, and while this isn't necessarily a stat, the Cavs vibes are amazing. This team is a complete brotherhood and has a lot of continuity over the last couple seasons. Even during the trades at the deadline, though it did make them clearly better, they still were very emotional about losing guys part of that locker room. But they have changed. They aren't just the same team as always, like some fans like to say. They've replaced Cedi Osman, Karis LeVert, and Georges Niang with DeAndre Hunter and Ty Jerome, while their core 4 remained healthy, with Garland recovering from his jaw injury that set him back last season, and Kenny Atkinson has been a master at setting lineups, seemingly being able to just throw any 5 onto the court, and it works. Now, just how historically good are the Cavs? Well, we know how good their offense is, one of the most efficient scoring teams in history, as reflected by the offensive rating, and one of the best deep-range shooting teams of all time. But they are now 49-10, tied for the 11th best start through the first 59 games of a season, and just the 16th team to win 45 of their first 59. As even those Celtics last year, that just ran through the entire league and were even dominant in the regular season, were just 47-12. That puts Cleveland on a 68-win pace, a mark reached by just 6 teams ever, with 4 of those teams winning the championship and 5 going to the finals. They aren't showing any signs of slowing down either. With the addition of DeAndre Hunter at the deadline and currently on a 9-game win streak, they seem to be picking up more steam. Their remaining schedule is also one of the easiest, with their toughest matchups being the Knicks twice and the Grizzlies, having already finished their season series with other elite contenders Boston and OKC. But that raises the question, can Cleveland actually win the championship? The answer is yes. The team is legit. While they don't have a top 5 player, Spida can go band for band with anyone on any given night, and is an elite scorer come playoff time. In the Eastern Conference, New York has proven that they cannot compete with actual contenders. Milwaukee, Indiana, and Detroit aren't title contenders, though the Pistons have been great, and the one way to beat Boston is to outshoot them. Well, Cleveland may be the one team that can do that. Over in the West, OKC has struggled to stay healthy, and Cleveland's depth and stars can compete with the Thunders. While they may not be the title favorites, the Cavs are one of the best regular season teams we have seen ever, and their playstyle should translate to the playoffs where they can go toe-to-toe with anyone.